Hey, this is Domingo, and we're having another amazing interview. I met Tommy the first time last year when he came to speak at the Monetization Mastery Super Conference, and he was just dropping knowledge on YouTube ad marketing, and it was exciting for me because I really haven't met anyone who actually mastered that part of it. And so, with internet marketing, we're all learning, and there's many different vehicles that you can do it. But at the end of the day, what's neat about Tommy is that he literally is like a stone throw away from me. He lives like 3 hours from me, from Huntsville to Atlanta, and so it's great to connect. So, guys, I'm bringing Tommy Powers to this conversation, this interview today. So, Tommy, thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this, man.
Yes, sir, man. Thanks for having me, man. It's good to connect again, man, too.
Yeah, it's been some time. It's funny that sometimes, even though it doesn't matter how close people live, you just don't end up connecting, and it's like you have to go to an event to connect. So
exactly. Working from home, man.
So Tommy, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us what made you an entrepreneur. Did it come from college? Did it come from you growing up? I mean, what was your first experience?
Yeah, man, I always knew I wanted to kind of, walk at the beat of my own drum, if you will. Ever since I was young, I didn't know what entrepreneurship was, but I didn't really associate myself being an entrepreneur. I just knew I had this feeling, and I didn't really know how to describe it. But I had some entrepreneurs in my family, but majority of my family are working class people. I'm from Mississippi originally, like we discussed. And I come from, it's like, we wasn't poor. Like a lot of times people think about Mississippi and it's like, rock roads with bare feet, people don't wear shoes and whatever. It's like, whatever. But we weren't poor, but we weren't rich, and so I didn't come from money. I came from people who say, hey, if you want anything, go out there and work, go work for it, I got a nice car, but that's my car. I got a nice house, but that's my house. If you want one, go get a job and go buy you one, that kind of thing. But I always knew it was more to it than that. But my mom was big on education. So it was like, go to school, get an education, blah, 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 blah. And so, that led me to college or whatever. So I finished college. And then after that, I started working in management. And then, I just always had this little thing in the back of my head. It's like, man, I really want to do something else other than just work for somebody the rest of my life. And it just, burned more and more and more as time went on. And eventually I quit my corporate job and ventured out on my own. And I failed miserably. I failed horribly, actually, really, really bad. And so much that I went back into the workforce. But what was crazy, what happened after that is when I got back into the workforce and I started working, I was bouncing around jobs. And the last real job that I had was the one that I thought I was going to actually make a really big career out of. But I ended up in 2007, early 2007, I had congestive heart failure. And that is really what changed everything, because after that happened, I wasn't making any money. My wife was working, having to take care of the family. Like, we was on the verge of losing everything. And my back was up against the wall. And so that was really the thing that really forced me to say, okay, man, like if you're really going to do something, if you're really going to be an entrepreneur, you're really going to go out here and make it happen. Now is now or never. Because I knew at that point, I didn't say I knew, I felt like I didn't have any other options. So that really what pushed me forward. And, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, because I learned a lot about myself from that day all the way up to now, and I continue to do. So I learned so much about myself in terms of what potential I actually have when I actually apply myself to something. The only thing I've really ever did and put a lot of effort in was finishing college. And I really wasn't doing that initially. I had really bad grades. But I promised my grandmother, my father's mother, that I would graduate from college. And right around the time that I was getting, I actually sat out of school for a year. My grandmother got real sick. And from that that really what sprung me to say, man, you know, I made her a promise. I want her to see it through before she, you know, something happens. And I was the first grandchild on my mom and my dad's side to get a college degree. I was the first of my siblings, even though I have I have 5 siblings. Well, technically I got 6 siblings because I got a half sister.
They're growing every minute.
Well, so here's the thing. My mom is 5 children. My mother had 5 kids, right? So 1 is younger than me and 3 are older than me. And so, but I still ended up, my oldest brother, that's another story, but he pretty much couldn't really do much for himself. But my second oldest brother, who is like my big brother, he went into the military. And then my sister, that's ahead of me, she actually graduated from college, but I beat her. She's 2 years older than me, but I beat her graduating. So we both got a college degree, but I beat her graduating. She graduated like a year, maybe like 2 years after me. So I beat her to the punch. But, you know, saying all that to say, I was the first grandchild on both sides of the family. And that was a big thing. And my grandmother was, you know, that was a big deal to her. It was a big deal to my mom. And I promised them that I would do that. And that's really why I decided to like graduate from college. Because if it wasn't for that, I probably would have never went back. And so that was the only thing I ever really applied myself to, because I had a reason. You know, in entrepreneurship, I dabbled or whatever, but I never really had a reason. You know what I mean? And so the heart failure thing was just like a huge wake-up call. Like, you know, what are you gonna do? Like, you know, are you gonna continue to allow other people to dictate your life, or are you gonna grab the bull by the horns and do something about it? You know, because I really felt like I didn't have no other options. And so I was very driven by wanting to do something bigger than what, you know, just work for somebody else the rest of my life. And you know, I wanted to teach my children these things or whatever, but I knew I had to lead by example. And that was the time where I had to buckle down, and I didn't have a choice. I feel like I didn't have a choice. And as a result of that, I learned so much about myself, and I got a little taste of it, man. And I don't want to do it no other way now. So I may have a roundabout way of explaining it, but that's kind of the story, man.
You know, what's interesting. Well, firstly, it's fascinating. What's interesting, though, is that, one, you had such a major event happen to you twice, right? Your grandmother getting sick. That was a pivotal moment for you to make a commitment to what you had to do, and you finished college. But then the second one, which I think was pretty big as well, was the congestive heart failure at the age of, 29, 30?
Yeah, I was 31.
Which is younger than the average person, right? But that right there was a pivotal moment in your life to actually drive you down the path you are now. And I recognize that every entrepreneur has a moment like that, not as severe as yours, obviously, but we have that moment where we're put up against a wall, where we have to make a decision. We actually sit back and say, who am I? What am I going to do in this life? And am I doing what I really love doing? And you were given that moment. I mean, you really were. So what advice would you give entrepreneurs that are feeling that right now, that feel like they're in that spot?
Man, I mean, the best thing I can say, it's, you know, it's like, you don't really know how much power you have until, like, you know, it's just like, you know, some guy, like these college students that they're talking about right now who rescued this lady from a car, you know, that was like sinking in water or whatever. Like, you know, those guys didn't wake up thinking that they had the power to do something like that. But it's like, you never know the power you have until you're put into a situation. And like, you just got to figure out a way to put yourself in that position to be like, you know, it's now or never. Like, I gotta act now, you know, because tomorrow ain't promised to you. You never know what's going to happen. And that's really, for me, the doctor told me if I would have went home that night, I would have died. I wouldn't have made it. And they were actually about to send me home. My wife tells this story better than me because I don't remember. But they said that I have some rhabdomyolysis, which is like a breakdown in muscle tissue, and that I would be okay, you know, if with rest and whatever. And they were literally about to send me home. And some other doctor came in, and my wife said the guy looked in my eyes and he said something wasn't right. And he made them run all of these tests on me. She said it took like 30 vials of blood out of me. And as a result of that, I ended up in ICU, and I ended up doing 10 days in ICU. But the next day when I came to, the cardiologist in the room, she looked at me and was like, "You lucky. You lucky." You know, and she was like really getting on me because I guess my wife had told her I wasn't really taking care of my health and things like that or whatever. And, but after that, you know, having a conversation, they told me basically if you'd have went home that night, you would have died. And so from that day forward, like I didn't have an experience, like a death experience like a lot of people do, but I remember there was a time where I was like, I couldn't breathe and I had to call the ambulance to come and get me. And then like being in the hospital, emergency room, I vaguely remember that. And then like there's this point in time where it's just like, I don't know anything that happened. I just woke up and I got all of this stuff hooked up to me. I got IVs in both arms. I got oxygen on me. I'm catheterized. I got these things wrapped around my leg. I got all of this stuff. And I remember waking up to that. So I don't really have that type of experience like some people say they went to the other side or whatever. But I do remember distinctly being from one thing to another thing and waking up to that. And man, it doesn't give me nightmares or anything, but it's just a constant reminder all the time that you never know what tomorrow may bring. And so if you can't put yourself in a position where you are thrusted to act based on that, I mean, when are you ever going to do it? You know, time's going to fly by. Life is going to fly by. Something's going to happen and it's going to be too late. And I just always try to tell people, don't be the guy that waited too late. Don't be the guy that look back on life and say, man, I wished I would have, because I was almost that guy. And thankfully I got a second chance and I'm not going to squander it. So that's kind of what I try to communicate with other people when, you know, I kind of share my story with them or whatever. It's just like, don't be like me. Don't be like me and have to be forced to do something as a result of, you know, you just lollygagging and not really doing anything. And then you're forced, your back is up against the wall and you're forced. That's like the worst odds to overcome. The chances of you overcoming those odds are very slim. Don't get yourself in that situation. But the way you do that is you got to act. You got to act now. It's now or never. And I don't really know how to tell people how to get themselves in that. But I just try to share my story with them to say, you know, hey, you can end up like me or you can make a decision on your own. Which one would you rather?
Yeah. You know, man, that's powerful. That's powerful. You know, I love what you said about you don't know the power within you.
No, you don't. You
know, it is hidden from you. You know, you're right. In a way, you don't know your own abilities. When you see all these news, this news stuff about, you know, how a lady lifts a car to save a child, and or you know, just all these instances of that, you know, your survivability mode comes out and you do things that you thought you could never do. And I think that's powerful. That's a powerful statement, because the truth is you don't know what you're capable of doing. You don't, and you will never, unless you put yourself to it. And you don't quit. I mean, because the truth is, you know, you don't ever know where the end is. And you probably will never know where the end is. Like, you know, when you start a path and a journey, it's not like when you get to the end, you're done. You know, there's no such thing as that. I think life is constantly learning. But man, when you're thrown or forced to do something, you know, make a decision, that you're right. That's the hardest time. And then you know, it's easier to be willing and wanting to do it.
It is. Than
to say you don't have a choice.
Yep.
You got to do this or you will, whatever that statement is. That's a tough position to be
in. And to build on that, when you're in that position, you make a lot of bad choices too. When you're like forced, you're not making the best decisions. You're making survival decisions, really, which when you're surviving, I mean, obviously that's what you're doing, but as an entrepreneur, you don't want to make decisions in survival mode. That's not a way to be, you know? And so I try to communicate that and articulate that to people, you know, and say, you know, don't allow yourself to be in a point where you're just trying to survive. You're trying to do this to survive when you don't have to be. Now, some people have to be, but if you don't have to be, don't put yourself in that position, because you're going to make a lot of bad decisions that are not going to allow you to become the kind of entrepreneur that you really want to become. And I had to fight through a lot of that. That's the biggest challenge that I had after being able to overcome the issues with the health and everything. I had to overcome a lot of things, which is why it's taken me such a long time to really get to the level I feel like I should deserve to be at, because I had a lot of those things that I was trying to overcome, trying to provide for a family. I got 3 kids, I'm married, and I'm trying to do this business thing and have money to pay my bills, let alone grow a business. I got to take care of home first and foremost.
Yeah.
So that's a really difficult struggle, having to build a business with that kind of, kind of pulling on you constantly. Like, it's really difficult. And a lot of times you got to make decisions over business or over family. And most entrepreneurs, while a lot of guys who are like really successful, they make decisions over their entrepreneur career and success over their family, which is why you see a lot of them can't stay married and kids don't like them and things like that. And I always said I'll never do that. However, my business suffered as a result. It took me a long time to overcome that, because I never would put my family secondary, but had I done something when I wasn't in that position, when I first left my corporate job and I really did the things that I was supposed to do, when I had really great credit and 80 grand in the bank and all of these things, I probably would have got a lot farther along, but things happen, you live and you learn. So I try to articulate that and share that with people, and hopefully it'll inspire them in some kind of way to say, man, I better get up off my butt and get to cracking.
Well, I think you had, yeah, I agree. You had really 2 good points in there. One about priority, why you're doing what you're doing. Are you on the right path? Just because you got other people out there buying Lamborghinis and buying mansions and all that, don't mean they're happy.
That's true.
And if you're driven to that, if that's what you're like, I want to become, then you need to see if the rest of your life is in balance for that, because you may be the only one on that journey and not find anyone else to go with you.
Yeah, that's true.
And I totally get the whole family thing, because we do what we do for family, right? Right. I got my daughter's in Syracuse, and they ain't cheap.
That's right.
My son's going to graduate in 4 years. That ain't cheap.
Right.
3 years now. I just lost a year. So in 3 years. So, and then you have to provide. And that's one thing I try to stress to people. It doesn't matter. Like, Tommy, you're obviously a successful entrepreneur, but you still have the battles of paying the bills. You still have the battles of dealing with the business. So it doesn't matter how successful you are. You still have the struggle every day. Right. To make what you make. People see the accomplishments of some buying a mansion, buying a Lamborghini, like that's the end result, and they're all set, and they're set. They don't have to worry about money anymore.
Right.
It's not like that. I'll tell you, it's not like that at all.
Right. I agree.
And then another point that I thought you did really well with was the fact that throughout someone's journey, we are making constant decisions, and we are constantly trying to better ourselves and constant learn, because you have to learn this process. And knowledge is one thing, but knowledge and experience is another.
Exactly.
And so one of the things I always got, what did you do with mentors? Did mentors help you guide through this process? Do you recommend mentors to people? Or what's your view on that, actually?
Yeah, I recommend them. I've had a lot of mentors in a lot of different capacities. So, like, I don't always articulate it in terms of like what a typical mentor type of thing, like this, super uber successful guy type of thing. Like, I've never had that kind of a mentor, but I've always had like people I can bounce ideas off of and things like that. I've always had a community, if you will. I've always been able to figure out a way to plug into a community of people who have some skill that's better than something that I have. And so the way it works for me is I know what I have of value to exchange. And if I can give you a little bit of this value that I have in exchange for a little bit of the value you have, it's a win-win. And so That's kind of how I've approached it. Although now I do kind of look at it more like, I guess because I'm at a different level now. I think my thing is, you know, some people are talking about like they have nothing, but they have like this mentor that's like way up here. And it's like, that's nothing that I've ever like kind of chased. I've always tried to look at like right ahead of me, because I know that guy ain't too far along from handling the challenges of where I'm trying to get to. Yeah. They probably still are kind of sharing that with me. And so that has been a lot more valuable to me, doing it that way. Not that there isn't like, you know, uber successful mentors out there that I know, that people that I could talk to, but I didn't really peg at that a lot unless I felt like really connected to that person and they kind of shared my story or whatever, or my background and things like that. And so I ain't want to just like basically, you know, spend all my social capital, if you will.
Yeah.
It was better for me to like, this guy's like one, you know, thing ahead. And really, I probably have a whole lot more value I can give him right now than I could give this guy way up here. You know, even though I think I can give that guy some value, you know, this guy will probably more appreciate it a lot more and be willing to do more for me in return. And I just kind of leveraged that a lot, man. And it worked, you know, it worked for me, you know. And so I've always tried to give people more value in exchange that they give me. And as a result, you know, people brag about you, they talk about you. I ended up on your stage because of that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it works for me. But it's not like the typical mentor thing that most people talk about. But in my mind, it's still the same concept. It's just a little bit different than most of what you kind of hear people, you know, talk about or whatever. So.
Well, no, I agree with you, because like I tell people, when you focus on getting a mentor, you know, get someone who's doing it.
Yeah.
Get somebody who's actually in the business. Exactly. Don't, you know, I had a mentor once come to me and says, listen, I can help you with your business because I'm the one that helped Walmart become Walmart in the 80s. Well, this was back in 2005. And I'm thinking to myself, what does that have anything to do with today? Like Walmart couldn't become Walmart today.
Right.
It's a different total model, different culture, different time, different mindset from people. So it's very different. So definitely, I completely agree. Find someone who's in the business, who's going through the day-to-day struggles, that, you know, that social capital, coming together and saying, hey, this is what I'm facing. This is what I'm facing. Oh, this makes sense. Yeah. And making it work for you. 100%, man. I agree. And I also agree with the social network, you know, as far as the capital that you have, because who you hang out with, who you're connected with, is key to knowledge. Key, because they're essential for your success, because they're the knowledge that's the knowledge base that you can tap into to get the knowledge that you need at any moment. So yeah,
I am who I am because of that. Like, I'm telling you, like, you know, everything that every level that I've gotten to thus far has been a result of just doing people, you know, the golden rule, you know, and actually taking it a step beyond the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated, that kind of thing. Well, no, I try to treat people better than I want to be treated, because then if I do that, they're going to brag about me, they're going to talk about me, they're going to tell their friends and things like that. And that's so how it happened, man. That's just so how it happened for me. So that just works. And I still do that to this day, man. And it works. It works. And I probably never abandon that strategy.
Oh, that's great, man. And what about, so a learning lesson from last year? You know, I constantly believe that people are, you know, we're always constantly learning. So what was your biggest lesson you think you learned last year that you're applying to this year?
The biggest, if I had to pick one, man, I would probably say Silicon Valley, you know, working with this company, 500 startups that I work with now, I consult with. I'm basically like, it's kind of a contractual type of thing. I don't work full time for them. It's just kind of like a 1 day a week type of thing or whatever. But being able to get involved in that whole ecosystem, it's like a different world, you know, and really understanding like investing, startup investing, just investing in general, and how it all works. Like, what their goal is to build an ecosystem that's self-perpetuating, so to speak. And so it's not just about, you know, writing checks and investing in companies and all of that. It's like, it's the whole thing, you know, because most companies are going to fail, right?
Yeah.
So the beauty of 500 is like, that happens, but because you're plugged into this ecosystem, your next thing is just reaching out to the ecosystem. Now I got my next thing that I can do, because maybe I'm a talented full stack developer and my company is about to fold, but there's another company that's looking for a full stack developer with experience. And all you got to do is reach out to that ecosystem and say, hey, I'm full stack. You guys probably already know me, whatever, but here's what I'm looking for. The next thing you know, boom, you got something. So it changed the shift in my mind of how I want to develop what I want to create for my own community. Like, for where I'm from, you know, Mississippi, you know, small town, you know, that kind of thing. I'm from a progressive thinking town, but it's still a lot of like, you know, and I love Mississippi, but it's still not a lot of opportunity there. And so I want to be a catalyst for change for that. And being able to understand how the ecosystem component really plays a role in all of that. It's not just about the money. Obviously, you got to write checks, but it's way bigger than just being able to write checks. And that made a profound impact on me now in terms of how I want to springboard being a catalyst in my own community. So that was like huge. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning every day from that. But last year was just, you know, to be able to be more involved and fly out and do a lot of events with them and them asking me to be a part of the team and all of that. And really them pulling back the curtains and giving me the blueprint on the business. Like, this is how it works. Oh, and this is how we actually make money as a VC company. And this is how we do investments. And it's just been like, man, like a fire hose. But the biggest lesson that I learned that is, you know, building the ecosystem and really understanding what that means. Because I've heard that term before. Steve Jobs, I don't know if you read about him, but he was big on building the ecosystem, Apple being an ecosystem. You know, so I've heard that term thrown around, but I never really understood fully what it meant until I was actually inside of one, dealing with people who saying, whatever you want to know, we're an open book. You know, Dave McClure, I actually got a chance to meet Dave and hang out with him quite often. He's the founder. He's actually one of my mentors now. But actually being able to communicate with Dave and him really, you know, sharing with me, you know, kind of the vision of where the company is going, and to really think that it's way bigger than he ever thought it would be, and all of these things. And it's just like, you know, these fundamental principles of an ecosystem is really what drives the 500 Startups model. And just, wow, it just blew me away, man. And like, I see how I'm going to take those lessons, and now I see how I'm going to take that and apply it in my world at a really high level to be a catalyst for change, and to give that 18-year-old small town Mississippi boy with all of these, great ideas and thoughts and all of this passion and drive that I had to want to do something great. But I didn't have anyone that could write checks. Everybody wanted to give advice, but wasn't nobody writing checks, you know, and then be able to write those checks and to be able to give that kind of experience and advice. I want to be able to do that for that guy, because I was that dude. Now I want to be the guy that guy was looking for. I don't think going forward that my legacy would be what it is if I say, man, I remember what I wanted, but I didn't become what I wanted to be to somebody else. And that is really what that whole ecosystem has really given me, because now I see how I can do that in a way to be what I wanted, what I was looking for someone else now, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense, man. I totally, the culture that you create and the environment that you're in and the community that you're involved in is essential, right? And I love the ecosystem component, because I've been involved with Silicon Valley as well. I've done some things up there. I'm mentoring entrepreneurs all the time, and I think it's great to be able to pass on the knowledge and pass on the experience and actually give them a full kind of view of what needs to happen. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I came up with my own version of the universal principles of success, right? Because I want people to get that if you get this understanding, you have a better chance of succeeding. But then if you take that knowledge and throw them into an ecosystem that you're talking about,
Exactly.
and give them every support they need from, from positioning, from teams and mindset and finances, that's powerful. And, it's great to actually hear that, that you left your mind open for that, and that you see it, and that you're able to remember that from the 18 to 20-year-old that you were out of Mississippi, that, there are people out there that are willing to help you. There are willing, and you're willing to give back. I mean, I think that's really big. I think that's really powerful statement about you.
I mean, what legacy would I be leaving if I didn't, I mean, even if it's just for my kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, really, to be honest, that's really what it's about, is my kids, my nieces and nephews, my immediate family, right? But we all know, like, if you are effectively, maybe not everybody, but you and I know that if you build an effective ecosystem, it's going to grow, like, beyond whatever your immediate thing, and I understand that. But if I get it right for them, then the potential of that happening is greater. Because if I don't get it right for them, they can't carry it and they can't take it. And it's like my grandmother used to tell me, my dad's mom, her thing was like, where we're going as a community, as a people, right? Where we are, we're not where we can be. And in order to get to where we can be, I'm not going to get us there. You're not going to get us there. But what my job is to do, to hand you the baton, and your job is to hand your kids the baton, and so forth, and make sure that they understand the importance of them doing everything that they can so they pass that baton. And if we do that, we'll get there. And if you believe that, go do what I'm telling you. And so I believe that, and I instill that into my children. And I think, hey, I may not see it in my lifetime, but if I'm focused on only what I'm gonna get, I can't really build a legacy that I can get where we trying to go. And I really believe in that because it was instilled in me. And so that's kind of how I approach it. I gotta get it right for them. But if I do that, I know it's gonna be this more encompassing thing that's gonna grow a life of its own, or whatever. And that's basically what ecosystems are. When you get it right, they become a thing of their own. It's like Apple is the most valuable company in the world right now. And they started in a garage. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. So
what do you do to like, what habits, what do you do on a daily basis to contribute to your mindset, your growth, your business? I mean, is there like a daily ritual that you do, that you find yourself that if you can give advice to people to help them grow, what would it be?
I need to get better at rituals. I don't do enough daily rituals as I should, because when I do practice that, I get a lot of breakthroughs. But then somehow I get distracted from them. Like I'm like a one-track guy. Like if I gotta do something, I can like focus on one thing, but then I'll focus on another thing, and I like get distracted easily. I'm a really ideal person. Paid advertising was the first thing that, when I really was doing the internet marketing thing, that attracted me, because I like numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And so looking at the numbers, I could like stare at numbers all day. Like I just love looking at like, well, what does that mean? And what does that mean? And so for me, that's what gravitated me to it. You know what I mean? But I still get distracted a lot. I get distracted a lot. And so when I find myself doing like rituals and daily things, I get these breakthroughs, but for some reason I always get off track somehow. And to be honest, I think it's accountability. I need someone else to hold me accountable. And that's what I'm learning about myself, because I don't like people to control me. And like, I like being in control too. I'm a control freak. And I'm learning that about myself. But when I allow the right people to hold me accountable, I get these breakthroughs. And typically when other people holding me accountable, it forces me to get into these rituals, these daily routines that you have to do, because it's like, if you don't do these things, you know that this person is holding you accountable, and you don't want to make them mad or upset or whatever, right? But then you end up getting these breakthroughs. And so I'm trying to do better with that. And part of my thing with the mentors, to circle back on that, is to have those type of people that say, this is what you should be doing every day, or you know, whatever, like, this is what's going on in my business, and say, well, what are you doing? Are you doing this or are you doing that? And I allow them to challenge me on those things and then hold me accountable for those things. And when I do that, I get breakthroughs. And so that's something that I'm slowly letting go of more and more, is allowing myself to be held accountable on some level. Because if I do that, then I have to, it's almost forcing myself to do it, if you will.
Yeah.
But I get distracted a lot, dude. I get distracted a lot.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Don't we all, man? That's one thing that's true. That's true. And you know why we get distracted, and the more experience we get as well, is because you know that you can accomplish anything. You know, you set your mind to it. So everything becomes possible, you know. True. And it is tough to say, okay, look, let's stay focused on this first and go on. And you know, as young entrepreneurs, we find ourselves, hey, I just know that I'm meant to become something, and I know I'm going to do one thing, but there's so many possibilities that, you know, you learn the hard fact that you need to stay focused on one and just stick to one and do something you're passionate about. And so, yeah, I agree. I get distracted all the time myself. So, but if you, you know, listen, it's been powerful so far. If you could give last words or any bit of advice to anyone who's watching this, what would you say?
Oh, man. You know, I mean, I always try to tell people, like, you know, like, if you want to be great, right? Like, most of the world, most people in the world are followers. You know, that's just a reality. And it has to be that way, because everybody, you can't, it's like the whole saying, you know, not too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? Like, you know, and that statement is basically saying, you know, it's too many people trying to call shots and ain't nobody actually executing. You know, so the reality is most people are followers, but, and it has to be that way. However, if you want to be great, you can't follow and be great. You can't, it just doesn't work that way. And what happens is you're doing something that most people are not doing. And what happens a lot of times is people are inclined to gravitate to what's comfortable, right? And so if you're doing something that makes people uncomfortable, and they not be doing this purposely. It's just a natural reaction that you're following the path less traveled by. You're doing something most people will not understand. And until you come to realization of that, it's going to be really difficult to get anywhere. And so what I had to learn how to do is surround myself with people who believe what I believe. But still realistically understanding that in the grand scheme of things, we're a small minority, right? But sometimes you just want somebody to give you some positive affirmations and things like that or whatever. And if you surround yourself by people who don't understand what you're doing, or they're following the typical common approach to life, and you're trying to live this extraordinary type of life and things, you're going to feel like an outcast. You're going to feel like what you're doing, like, it's going to feel different, because it is. And because most people are not doing what you do, they're not willing to do what you're willing to do. So they're not going to ever live the life that you're going to live. And until you come to grips with that's just what it is, it's going to be a struggle. And for me, I didn't really start getting those major breakthroughs until I started surrounding people who think the way I do and believe what I believe. You know, and then to be able to actually see those people do these things, right? And then as well as people who were like me at the time, where we bought into we believed the same things, but we wasn't where we wanted to be. Now seeing my friends have grown, and you was talking about Lamborghinis and all of that, and I'm laughing because I got friends who are buying, big houses and fancy cars and all of this, and we all started in the same way, and so, that's not necessarily the life that I want to, whatever. I mean, I like cars, don't get me wrong, because I want an Aston Martin, but I don't need that to validate me. It's just something that I want to be able to do because it's something that I want to do, not as a validation thing. But I got like people that I know that we started in the game together, and they're out here and they're doing these things. And sometimes you do get tempted to get caught up in that. You find yourself looking at it and be like, dang, or you hanging out with your boy now, and you go to his town now, and he used to stay in an apartment, and now he got like a 4,000 square foot pad, and $100,000 cars parked in the driveway. And it's like, wow, and it just those things. And so those are the reminders that it's all worth it. And most people, if you don't surround yourself with those type of people, you're gonna get dragged into that, and so you got to come to realization with that's really what it is, man. And if you're not willing to accept that that's true, I think you're gonna have a hard time. And so for me, at least for me, when I started really accepting that, you know what, y'all don't get it, y'all don't understand, you don't see what I'm doing, and I had to come to the point, because I used to try to bring my family and friends and try to be like, look at this, I'm making $50,000 a month, these type of things, and it's like, I want them to experience this, but they don't get it.
Yeah.
And I had to come to realization of that. And once I did, it's not that I'm leaving anybody behind, because you'll hear people say I had to leave people behind. It wasn't so much that, it's just that I had to go integrate myself into people who believe the thing that I believe. And it made all the difference in the world. It's like events we talked about. You go to events, the biggest thing I get out of events, a lot of times I don't usually learn anything new per se, but it's just the energy, man, of that you get for being in a room full of people who think, act, and feel the same way you. That energy, man, is so freaking, like, it's addictive. And that's really why I go to events now. A lot of times I go to events, I don't even sit down and go listen to the talks. I just want to be around people like me, because I sit here, I'm in Douglasville, Georgia right now. I'm in my office, which is like, my garage is right behind this wall right here. But I don't get to really communicate with people a lot day to day. I got one guy that works with me that lives about 10 minutes. He comes to the office sometimes or whatever. But for the most part, I'm here. And if I want to get human interaction, I got to leave the house or whatever. And that's still difficult because there's not a lot of people who can go to lunch because they may be at work somewhere or whatever the case may be. So I don't get that a lot. So those events really give me that. And that's when when I first started doing that, I was just like addicted to it, because I got so much out of that and coming back and just getting stuff done. Because it's like, yeah, I'm on the right track because I saw all of these other people doing it. They believe what I believe and all of that. And so that's like the biggest thing, man. It's like sometimes you just got to surround yourself with people who think and act like you do. And if you don't come to grips with, what reality really is, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. And I try to share that with as many people as I can who say that they want, to be able to have the lifestyle that we have and do the things that we doing,
Guys, this is powerful words from Mr. Tommy Powers himself, because, man, Tommy, we time has gone we haven't talked enough. Let's put it that way. Because this one conversation to me was, man, it was a lot. It was a great stuff. And so let's make time for lunch, because you're literally 2.5 hours away, man.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's just get it done. But I want to thank you for today. I want to thank you for, dropping the knowledge that you have and for sharing with everyone, just letting everybody know who you really are, because that's what this is about. Just two guys having a conversation about possibilities, about accomplishing things and getting things done and staying focused and actually having the right purpose in life, so that we have our rewards. Our rewards are in the right place, So I hope you guys got all this out of this conversation we just had, because that's what I did, and it's great. Tommy, thank you so much for your time, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Until next time, guys, stay focused, stay driven, and find your true purpose.